Six new ANC provincial task teams have been announced for KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng with the hopes of renewing branches and ultimately winning elections. ANC veteran Jeff Radebe will lead the task team in KZN, while Amos, Masondo and Panyaza Lesufi will take the lead in Gauteng's interim structure. The leadership teams will replace the party's provincial executive committees. Let's unpack this with Independent political analyst Elvis Masoga, who's with us now via our video link. Elvis, thanks for your time and your patience. Welcome to the SABC News channel. It's not the first time that the ANC intervenes like this in other provinces as well, but I wonder whether we have any kind of evidence that this actually works, that it leads to a more stable branch, so to speak, or more stable province, and ultimately one that's able to claw back electoral losses.
Ayanda, my humble greetings to you and all the viewers of SABC News. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead, Elvis.
No, thanks very much. Yes, maybe let's, preface your question with what the ANC constitution dictates. Mostly it revolves around, dissolution of a structure that happened to be incompetent or dysfunctional. So reconfiguration is usually a new thing. And I think even the ANC must start to align its constitutional practices with, day-to-day challenges that they encounter. Because if, for example, a higher structure such as the National Executive Committee, in terms of, continuous support to a lower structure, in this regard, the Provincial Executive Committee, and they realize that there is no any productive or tangible, progress on the part of the Provincial Executive Committee, the last option is dissolution, where you dissolve the current Provincial Executive Committee and put in a temporary structure in a form of a provincial task team. But in this regard, the ANC might think that they are dealing with, a provincial conundrums. I think it's a systemic problem that the ANC must start to realize. You can see even during the 2024 elections, the ANC declined in different and several provinces. And if you can check, there seemed to be a prevailing reality that, the ANC's tried and tested, methodology of believing in liberation ideals to deal with, contemporary currencies is no longer holding any water at all. They seem to be frozen in how they used to do things historically, but forgetting that the 21st century in 2024, 2025, the landscape has changed dramatically. I think they must start to develop a new model of political leadership and governance that start to accommodate, perceptions and views of ordinary people on the ground, because they continue to refer to themselves as the leader of society. But in terms of their methodology and technique that they apply in governance and political leadership, they are far removed from ordinary people. They concentrate on card-carrying members, like the elective conferences at provincial level, national, even at branch level. They focus very much on what card-carrying members think, but forgetting that during elections, it is only ordinary South Africans who qualify to vote who can determine the kind of government that they need. And I think they lost necessarily because the ANC became obsessed with card-carrying members, with its own political culture and tradition, but forgetting that those who matters the most during elections are ordinary people. That's why I'm recommending that they must review the way they operate. They are still frozen in history, and on the current situation, so much has changed, even in terms of voter behavior and practices.
Yeah. What does connecting with ordinary people look like to you, Elvis? I mean, part of what we've heard as they justified this new team is that they've now introduced a mix of experience. I mean, we've seen veterans like Jeff Radebe and Amos Masondo being brought to the fore. In the case of Gauteng, and Amos Masondo will work with Panyaza Lesufi. Fikile Mbalula yesterday saying that the idea here is to make sure that there's integration between those who are tried and tested in many ways. I mean, they've certainly won elections when they were at the helm, and those who need to take on the baton, who need to take the ANC forward. Does that to you sound like the kind of strategy that will help with the reconnecting of the people, as you put it?
The elephant in the room here is what I just, emphasized, frozen dogmatism. When you become obsessed with historical practices and tendencies, and you want to apply them in interpreting contemporary currencies, you'll get it wrong, because the times, frames, form and content of history, have changed as compared to the contemporary currencies. The same applies. You check in terms of their strategy and tactics document. It is, to me, it represents, this historical assessment model that want to assess whatever challenge they encounter within the context of history, liberation ideals, which are critically important, but they must adapt to new changes. A simple example, before 2004 general elections, a broad array of researchers, research institutes and other academics alerted the ANC that because they are drifting away from the grassroots in terms of alignment, they might fall below 50% of the national vote. They even recommended between 40 and 45. They never listened. Even the national leadership dismissed it as, counter-revolutionary Western-sponsored propaganda. But what happened? That is why I want to advise them that, yes, we appreciate history, we learn so much from history, but they must find a niche within contemporary currencies. How do they surveil and even assess the perceptions of their own people? A simple example, in a particular municipality, where do they lead? Are they having a basic understanding of the core needs and priorities of those ordinary residents? Because your decisions as a governing party must be determined by this, basic needs and perceptions that originate from ordinary people. If you are not able to trace these public perceptions on a continual basis, you'll always get it wrong. And you check, now they've announced in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal a bloated, task team. It lacks precision, it lacks specificity. Because when you develop an extraordinary intervention, you identify a small group of eminent and competent persons, you allocate specific tasks to them, and the task must be very precise. That's why I'm saying when you want an extraordinary intervention and you want to see positive results, you must be guided by specificity and precision. Be specific to who you appoint. Is he capable? Is he competent? And also be precise as to what is it that they are doing. You have got, two, deputy conveners. I don't understand for what. You have got so many different subcommittees. I don't understand for what, but you say you replace the old provincial executive committees because they are incompetent. Why can't you focus on those who are competent, a small group of eminent persons who can deliver on behalf of their provinces? But in as far as I'm concerned, I think they are making the situation far much worse.
Sure. All right. Elvis Masoga, not mincing his words. Thanks very much indeed for your take. Elvis is an independent political analyst. Once again, thanks very much indeed.